Yay! Welcome everybody to the public library. Thank you so much for coming in tonight. We really appreciate when people take time out of their busy schedules to support us here. And there's so much competition in this town, cool things going on every night, so it's really great to have this crowd. So thank you so much. My name is Pam Packard. This is my program. I love this program because it gives us a chance to just really be informal and talk with somebody who's, don't get a big head, but really cool and has some cool stuff going on in this town and around the Southwest and beyond. So I don't say too much. I do ask you to fill out a survey at the end of the program. You'll find them on each countertop right over there. There's pencils and surveys. It's good to know how you heard about things and also what you thought about things, and it helps City Hall know that we're doing important stuff over here. So I would ask you to fill that out. Is anybody signed up for the summer reading challenge and want to know the secret code? It is artist. So if you read a certain, you read and you record your time spent reading, and also you attend events and you get points for attending events, and then you get super cool gifts. You get entered into a raffle, and our own Tom Monroe has a rat sack in the raffle, so that's pretty cool. It's right now, it's we have so many cool raffles, but it's the third most popular. So that's great. It's really cool. Yeah. But without further ado, I give you David Grandon, and I'm just gonna say that the mural in our youth services department was created by this man here. So there you go, brother. Have fun.
Hey, I'm not sure how I got the esteemed privilege of sitting here, other than just longevity of coming and going from Flagstaff since 1995. I love this town. I love seeing familiar faces, and that's kind of part of the deal. And like, one of the first people I met was Mr. Andrew Moore, Judge Moore now. And we served on search and rescue together and had plenty of adventures, traveling down to Mexico, motorcycles. I had the privilege of and honor of being witness to your first off-road motorcycle adventure that went hundreds and hundreds of miles down into Mexico. We went together, and I got to see you. Oh my God! Having not a ton of experience on motorcycles, and it snowing the day we left, super exciting. I've lots of different incarnations here in Flagstaff. A lot of people know me from the Grandon Art Gallery. I had that in the mid-2000s, around 2006, 7, and 8. I think I closed it down in 2008, and that was a tremendous experience. I mean, it's my background. My degree is in art and art history, and I loved that aspect of my life. Something about a recession and an art gallery, they don't seem to work really well together. And I had conversations with George today about a little bit about that, and some of the other artists. I know Shanto was here, and some folks weathered the storm, and it wasn't the kind of storm I wanted to weather. That's a sore point of coming into Flagstaff, because every day I hear are you making art yet? Are you still making art? And it's like, it's not like it's dried up. It's just different layers of creativity have come on top of that, and it's like I'm still excited to make art, but I definitely have found different ways to express myself. I wore my weed shirt today. It's another incarnation I had. And a lot of people are kind of interested in that story. As many people know that in 2010, the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act passed. And I was really not like a huge cannabis advocate or we've got to move this forward. But when it came down to the vote, I voted for it. And I thought, it's a medical program. Let's make it so. And so I started going to the city council meetings, and I knew Chief Treadway. Kevin was chief of police at the time, a great guy, and but what I started to see from city council, the mayor's office, and law enforcement is like, we don't really want this in our town, so we're kind of gonna accept it and zone it by the dog pound. And I thought, well, I voted for a medical program, not a recreational program, so if I need to go to the doctor, I don't swing by the dog pound or the dump, I go to the hospital. So let's see if we can't rezone it. So I mustered my courage and spoke at city council meetings a number of times, saying, hey, let's reconsider what our zoning looks like with this process, and let's look and see what the voters voted for. And it's a medical program. So somehow the voice of reason prevailed, and my biggest ally ended up being Chief Treadway. And he approached me after a council meeting and said, hey, I love what you're saying, in the sense of, I thought that we would be disagreeing in almost all of the points. You look like a long-haired artist stoner. But you know, my philosophy is like, let's regulate it, let's tax it, let's ensure that children don't have access to it unless they have a medical need, and we'll go from there. Start from that platform, as opposed to, let's drive out to the dog pound and do an illicit deal with some shady characters. So what surprised me after that is those city council meetings were quite popular, and all of the folks rolled in their wheelchairs, gimped in with their crutches, and they all started calling me, hey, how do I get a medical marijuana card? I better get a medical marijuana card and figure out if people are going to be asking me that question. So I'm the 19th person in Arizona to get Arizona medical marijuana card. And I'm like, all right, what the hell do I do with this thing now? But I knew the process, and I feel comfortable with my laptop computer, so next thing I know, I'm meeting people every day at Campus Coffee Bean and signing up these people who don't really have a computer or don't really know how to do the program. And I spent about a month doing that, and then all of a sudden, cultivators started calling me out of the woodwork. And believe you me, there's a lot of marijuana growers here in northern Arizona and central Arizona. So they would call me and say, I heard you speak, and it seems like you're not profit driven, and we're not quite sure how you're motivated, but we know that you resonate with people who are sick, people with disabilities, and we want to give you a bunch of weed to give to them. So imagine, I don't come from a marijuana culture background, and when someone poses that question to me, I'm like, oh, well, let's roll with it. So next thing I know, I'm doing parking lot deals. I'm like, this can't happen. And I call up the chief of police, and I'm like, listen, can you help me? I want to work within this gray area, because it was all gray area at the time, and create a functional program where people who have a card can have access to it. Because mind you, in 2010, the law passed, cards were accessed, and you could possess. No dispensaries were open. That process hiccuped for another year and a half before they actually opened, and you could officially go in and purchase. And I'll be damned if I'm going to, get busted after all of those efforts in a parking lot at Target, serving a guy with Parkinson's disease. So the chief of police was like, this is not in my wheelhouse whatsoever to advise you what to do. So I, of course, called up my friend Armando Bernasconi and said, what should we do? And Armando's expertise is nonprofits. And he's the CEO of a wonderful organization here in town called Quality Connections that serves adults with disabilities with job training programs and all sorts of things. He has several group homes. Great guy. And I've known them for ages. And he's like, well, obviously we need to start a nonprofit. I'm like, let's start a nonprofit. So next thing you know, I opened Grassroots Wellness Center, a brick and mortar on Schweitzer Canyon, which at some point I felt like I was a bit thumbing my nose at the law. But I would call the chief of police and the sheriff's department. I'm like, can you come in, and I want to show you everything. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that, sir? And I'm like, I'm not sure if I do want to do that. I'm not sure. But if you're going to take me away in handcuffs at some point, then I'd like to be on a first name basis with you. So begrudgingly, law enforcement in Flagstaff said, well, we're not going to turn a blind eye. We'd like to see what you're doing, and we'd also like to send a few officers over to see what this looks like, and maybe even do some training with you. I'm like, how do you feel about that? Now, I would imagine the average drug dealer would not be too kosher with that, but I was not the average drug dealer. I just worked with average drug dealers. And how I worked with them is like, you need to get a tax ID number. We need to get organized. We need to create a system where you can legally bring this to me and I can legally distribute it to anyone who wants it and works within the system of the Arizona law. And my great friend Lee Phillips is a wonderful civil rights attorney here in town, and he guided me through the process. And Andrew, you were very helpful to your comfort level. And we created a process that our mayor at the time, Jerry Neighbors, was it Jerry Neighbors at the time? He was amazed to award our organization Service Agency of the Year because we gave back 20% of all profit back into the Flagstaff community, supporting cancer organizations and not small nonprofits, and started not the first, but one of the first children's community gardens. And it was a tremendous operation that lasted for almost 2 years. I met a good friend of mine, William Trout, who's now medical director of the largest cannabis organization in the country. And right now I'm advertising that, truly, that's where I work. The allocation process for medical marijuana dispensaries in the state of Arizona was pretty unique in a sort of bullshitty sort of way. So in the cover your ass method of the Department of Health, they decided, well, we're gonna get a lawsuit over this, especially if there's organizations working like David Grandon's place, Grassroots Wellness Center, that does not have a license. So we're gonna have a lottery. So basically you paid your money, which is a $5,000 entrance fee per location, and you had to have a location. Even if you didn't own the property, you had to have a location before you started business, with the potential of failing for lack of money, failing for any number of reasons. So and a lot of that did have to do with zoning, because the marijuana program, zoning was a little challenging. But that's good. I work well with challenges and work well within a system that has rules, and I'm very good at kind of finding those little loopholes. And so we opened up on Schweitzer Canyon. It was too close to a Christian school that was not really a school. They just proclaimed that they were a school because they were afraid that there was a marijuana dispensary going to show up there. So I met with the city of Flagstaff and lobbied for a variance and was denied. I'm like, all right, well, we're going to still work on this. And I went in with a group of old school Flagstaff planning and zoning guys, and they knew me from the art gallery, and I was with a young lady who used to work with the city of Flagstaff, but had a broken ankle, went into the hospital. They over-medicated her prior to her surgery, and she had a massive seizure and a minor brain injury, and still has a seizure disorder to this day. But she knew everyone at the city office, and they made a joke that, I heard weed is good for periods. Helps out. We went to the races, and my wife sure calmed down, and I'm like, this is not where the conversation should be going. This is actually I feel like you've sexually harassed me and my my companion here. And I brought that to the attention of the mayor and the city planner, and next thing you know, I got a grant. Or not a grant, I got granted zoning variance. And I found out that Lee Phillips had called and reminded them that they can't be doing that sort of stuff. Thanks to all the lawyers in the world. I appreciate you very much, no matter what they say about you. And so we did wonderful things. I had 5 massage therapists on staff that anyone, even if they didn't have a medical marijuana card, could come in, make an appointment, and come in for free. I had 2 naturopathic doctors that I worked with. All their services were free and donated. I had a Dr. Russ Bull. I can't believe that he came in and did counseling services for free, because a lot of people who qualify for the medical marijuana card have got some anxiety, some depression, some issues around chronic pain, or whatever ailment they may have. And also, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but getting that card, there's a stigma around it. And walking through a door of a place that sells marijuana, back in the day, not so much anymore, people would look over their shoulders and not tell their spouses or their children or their parents. And part of my mission was to, like, hey, let's not talk about weed or grass or ganja. Let's talk about this as a component of naturopathic medicine, and maybe even one of those things that could be the first line of defense as opposed to the last. Oftentimes people thought it was the last line of defense. I've tried every damn thing else. Let's shoot for this. Or my chemotherapy is just not going good, and my oncologist said that maybe I should. And then all of a sudden, some of the oncologists and doctors were saying, maybe you should go visit David. Maybe you should go to the Grassroots Wellness Center and see what's going on there. So putting a responsible face on that, and the responsible face was a little bit more clean shaven and better dressed prior to COVID. That's kind of how that story played out. When the lottery system came up, I put in for 3. I took a loan against my house and borrowed money, because not only did you have to have $5,000 to enter, you had to have you physically had to have $100,000 in the bank that you could access per license. So I begged, borrowed for friends, and they deposited money. Danny O'Connell was one of them. Deposited money in my account for a week so I could apply for these licenses, and I didn't get one. But what had happened in the meantime is that a group of attorneys and one guy who owns a construction company in the city of Tempe, as a joke, they all went to Chandler High School together, put in for a marijuana license and got it. And that was Steve White and Mr. Dean and Matt DiDonato and a couple other folks. And they came and saw what I was doing at Grassroots, and they're like, holy smokes. We visited another couple of clubs like yours, and it was as sketchy as could be. We were the first organization to take credit cards. We were the first organization to absolutely adhere to HIPAA policy and create a real record-keeping system for not only patients, but for the amount of product that came in. So nothing was unaccounted for. So if we did get audited, and when I say audited, I mean arrested, I had a leg to stand on. And Lee Phillips said, you want to fight this? Because I think that your model can exist, but what it will do is it will open the door for all models, whether they are as ethical as you or not, to exist. And there will be a fight. Steve White, the owner of Harvest Dispensaries and the newly licensed guy, he's an attorney as well. He's like, I'll fight for you if you want to fight. And I had to reassess and talk to my ex-wife at the time and decide, why did I get into this? Did I get into it to get all up in a dander and fight and stick it to the man? Well, maybe I did. Maybe I got into it for that reason, but the real reason I got into it was to help people out. And I've always been that way as far as working with and creating nonprofits and working for people with disabilities and illness and the poor and downtrodden. And this cannabis thing is just really a vehicle to make that happen for me. So I decided to stick it out for a little bit and see what happened. And the dispensary organization that did get the license, there were 3 licenses in Flagstaff. High Mountain Health, the organization called Noble Herb, which was called the Greenhouse of Flagstaff, and then Green Farms, which is out past the mall. Noble Herb got the license that I was gunning for, and they made it very clear that there ain't enough room in this town for the both of us, and they did that by shutting my bank account down and threatening me with a lawsuit and lots of other things that were kind of behind the scenes that were pretty nasty. And my medical director at the time, Dr. William Trout, who works for TrueLeaf now, he let me know that he was hired on with the first dispensary that opened, Arizona Organics. And he said that they formed a dispensary coalition in Arizona. And at the last meeting, your name came up. I'm like, it did? Really? They're talking about me? And they used words like destroy and do anything they can to make it so I cannot function. And I talked to Lee Phillips again about it. He's like, you should pull the plug on this operation, because they will. We can fight it, but it ain't gonna work. So Steve White comes to me and says, I'm a member of that organization, and that is fully accurate. And I got into this to help people. I didn't get into it to be under a boot. He's like, well, how about we do this? How about I hire you? And I'm like, to do what? And so next thing I know, I'm the community engagement coordinator for Harvest Dispensary 1 in the city of Tempe, and I don't know what I'm doing. I really have no idea what I'm doing. But what I'm good at is I'm good at talking to nonprofits. I'm good at being honest. I'm good at saying what I really feel, and organizations like the Epilepsy Foundation and Check for a Lump breast cancer organization, they're like, well, this helps our folks, but we don't have a voice that says, that's not like, that doesn't sound like Tommy Chong. And at that time, I was a little bit more of a suit and tie guy with a clean shave, and I came across pretty well, and I started building relationships. But at the same time I'm building relationships, Steve White is building an empire. So we had two dispensaries, Harvest of Scottsdale, Harvest of Tempe, then 3, Harvest of Baseline, then 4, then 5, then 10, then 20, and right now we're the largest organization in North America with just under 200 dispensaries nationwide, and we were acquired by an organization called TrueLeaf. And so what TrueLeaf has is they have this local, yokel, social worky sort of character like me that believes in the mission but could give 2 shits about selling weed. Ironically, I work for the largest weed company in not just the United States, but the world. And it ain't getting smaller. And we have a whole array of lobbyists, and we spend money like nobody's business. And this is my 10th year anniversary this month working with them. And they have not fired me. With all the bullshit that I do, they have not fired me. With all the inability to assimilate into a corporate environment, I'm still here. And that, to me, lets me believe that there is a seed of civility in all of these corporate gangsters and cannabis fiends and folks that are just think that Cheech and Chong is the greatest movie ever. Because I'm not that guy. But I'm still here. And so I created, not solely, but it was my brainchild, because all the other community engagements across the country have been cut. So 3 years ago, we created a program that seems brainless, because lots of organizations, Goodwill Industries does it. Welcome, thank you for shopping. Would you like to roll up your purchase to the next dollar? 1 penny, 99 cents. In the great state of Arizona, we have 21 stores now. And that simple procedure that cannot be, at this point, be recreated in any of the other states, because each state has an individual point of sale system. And ours is the only state, except for Maryland, which we have 3 stores, that allows us to roll up at the purchase. You can add $1, but adding $1, if you ask me to add $1 at the end of the purchase, I'm not gonna do it. If you ask me to not have any dirty change in my pocket, this is where I cue the penny joke again, then I will. And so I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, well, how much can you possibly, with 20 stores in Arizona, make with pennies? Last month, we donated $57,000 to the disabled American veterans, and I built a relationship with DAV National. Next month, July 3rd through 9th, I'll be at the National Veterans Wheelchair Games for the Paralyzed Veterans of America. We donated $50,000 for 1 month of weed change. 1 month. When we get the other 150 stores on board, imagine what we can do. Imagine what we can do. 100% of, there's no administrative costs. It all comes from the goodwill of people, the laziness of people, the whatever of people, the people who don't want an extra 3 cents in their pocket, because what do you do with that 3 cents now? So it is so exciting for me to be the owner of that project. And so July, so I've kind of morphed who we're giving to as of late. I wanted to create some national partnerships with veterans, obviously, because I think that there's we can say whatever we want to about veterans, how awesome it is that they served, but it's a massive lobbying organization that is overseen by the VA medical system that is woefully understaffed and underprepared for the massive amount of veterans that have been coming in with head injuries and such. And so DAV was a bit of a challenge, but when this knuckleheaded, long-haired social worker-y guy spoke to the executive director of the DAV and said, this is what I want to do. I don't want to put any weed leaves on your website. I want to create a job training program, and we have, for veterans. I want to create a veterans network within our program that acknowledges veterans and helps them get their benefits. And I want to amplify your mission, and I don't want you to amplify our mission. Because we're not going anywhere. The marijuana industry is not going anywhere. So I went to the DAV National Convention last year, and I was blown away. I'd gone to the year before, and I was a little bit of a fish out of water. Last year I went with 3 truly veterans who I had not met, and they were all nutty as pet squirrels, all those guys. They're all Afghanistan Special Forces guys, and they were just crazy. And I'm like, shit, what am I working with these knuckleheads? But I had a World War II veteran come over and look at us, the solo weed booth at the expo. And Dan, who has a mustache that curls around and is just, like I said, nutty as a pet squirrel, he turned his forearm and it said Ranger down the way. And that World War II veteran was like, thank you for your service. Tell me about what you're doing here. This marijuana thing, is it for real? And it opened my eyes. So we work with, the LGBTQ community also has embraced us. So we're part of Pride, Phoenix, not so much Arizona, not so much Flagstaff, because I don't have enough human power up here. We're based mostly down in Phoenix and Tucson. But we support an organization called 1 in 10 that is serving to help homeless youth. And I'm like, all you have to do is tell me homeless youth. I don't care if it's LGBTQ or who it is, if we can help them. So my latest project was, not only did we give them money to foster their programs, and they're very ingrained in the Arizona political landscape, but I'm working with the little organization here in Flagstaff called Grand Canyon Youth. And it's like, have you worked with 1 in 10? Have you worked with the LGBTQ homeless community? And they're like, how do we get started? And I'm like, well, she's like, and who are you? I'm like, well, I live 2 doors down, for one thing. So I was just walking my dogs, and I decided to come in and talk to you. So the first LGBTQ youth river trip will be in September on the Verde. Next month, I've split the register roll-up between 2 organizations, and they touch lots of different organizations. One is High Country Adaptive Sports. So if you've ever been up on Snow Bowl and seen those crazy paraplegic folks that have like the newest generation of adaptive skiing, to me is terrifying. It is a sip and puff unit. Inhale left, exhale right, go downhill fast. That was my first response. So we're going to be sponsoring the debut of that here. And I don't know what it looks like, but I'll be damned if somebody down in Tucson or in Phoenix or here in Flagstaff or anywhere else in the country decides that has a terrible, debilitating accident or comes back from Afghanistan or God knows where with a spinal cord injury, and they skied before and they want to ski now. Let's foster that. Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports we're working with too. They're more sport oriented. So they were the national wheelchair basketball champions of the United States. That's in Little Tucson. The Olympic quad rugby team is based pretty much 90% of their team is out of Phoenix. So we're going to be sponsoring those organizations because it's important. It's important to give people a voice. And so I go off on these tangents about serving the LGBTQ community, the Hispanic community, the veterans community, and then it's hard to come back to, so you're doing this through marijuana? How does that work? And so this industry is new and it's powerful, and they are willing to let me do that. I'm blown away by it. And I'm trying to teach the other community engagement folks in Pennsylvania and Florida who don't quite have the same philosophy. They also don't have the same vintage as me. Meaning they haven't been bounced around as much or seen as much pain or heartache, and knowing that sometimes it's nice to have a little help sometimes. And nonprofits, they don't work on goodwill, they work on money. And so if we can create a viable financial assistance program for nonprofits that serve the same people we serve, amen to that. And if we can create a volunteer program, which I'm working on, it's not quite there yet, to get our young staff engaged, and most of our staff is in their 20s. And most of them have not been afflicted with cancer, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, you name it. Most of them have not been to war. It's not that they're not sympathetic. It's not that they don't want to. They just don't know how the hell to start. And I'm like, here's how we start. We show up. We clean what needs to be cleaned. We make meals. We serve the YWCA, because I love working with the YWCA. That's my favorite new organization. When I first started working with them for Women's History Month, I did not realize that they're a 100-year-old civil rights organization that has nothing to do with the gym. I'm like, where's your gym? You need to work on the pecs. So, and just kind of an ironic story with that, I called the national director of the YWCA, which is YWCA USA, and said, we'd like to do a roll-up program for you. And at that point, it was in its infancy, and I said, I can guarantee you $25,000, and you can do whatever you want to with it. And you don't have to acknowledge us. I'd like you to acknowledge us. When I say you don't have to acknowledge us, that usually is like my code for you should acknowledge us. We cut them the check. The director came and gave a speech at the YWCA Metro Phoenix, and the night before she came to give the speech, she called me. And this is a professional smart African-American fighter woman. She called me in tears and she said, I didn't clear it with the board. We have to give you your check back. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's so awesome. She's like, why? I'm like, you cashed the check, right? So you got to give us the money back, but you've already cashed it. So we signed a memorandum of understanding so we can put out a press release that we're working with the national organization. You have to give me the money back, and then I give it to I give it to Southern Arizona and Metro Phoenix YWCA. So I gave away $50,000. Well, I gave away $25,000, but I got it back. I had to give it again. So we had a year-long partnership with the YWs of Arizona, and that has been wonderful. And I encourage you to look on their websites. Those organizations are powerhouses for women's rights and civil rights in general, and job training. And they have a class on how to ask for a raise. We also work with Dress for Success, which is a new favorite organization of mine. I'm definitely kind of going off on some tangents here, but I see Becky there, and I want to talk about, I see two Beckys. Wait, hold on, still two Beckys. And I hope you don't mind me sharing about our river trip and why we started it. And this is part of, Harvest and True Leave. It's got little fingers in it and donated a little bit, but this is my gift to you and to me too, because I love doing river trips and I love any excuse to do a river trip. 4 years ago, after Becky had that horrible diagnosis, and after her chemotherapy was done, I said, what do you want to do? A river trip? And so we flew down to Chiapas, Mexico, and ran to the Jacinto River with a crazy group of folks. And I would like this natural healing, amazing, get back to nature and be with your friends for other survivors that may not have had access to it. But I don't want to go back down to Mexico to do that. What crazy people are going to come with me down there? So we started our first annual San Juan Survivor River Trip, and this is our fourth one coming up. And Becky came on was it last year? And we take 8 women-ish, sometimes 7, sometimes more. Sometimes they revolve in and out real quick at the end, and we meet at our house in Sunnyside. And my amazing, weird, funny, conscientious, oddball friends who have boats and lots of experience carpool Becky and other folks and who trusted in us, which somehow I'm amazed that you did. And I'd love to ask you,
Why?
Why did you go with a bunch of people, especially when it made it clear this is not a commercial trip, this is just a group of friends, and I sell weed for a living.
Yeah.
How is it that you had the confidence to go with us, and if you could tell me what you thought about it?
Well, I mean, I'd always wanted to get on the river, but I had never done a river trip before. And then when I was connected with Becky, and it just kind of felt like the stars aligned.
Right.
And I mean, it was a blast. Like, it was 3 nights on the river. Like, even the first night when it was super cold, it was still good.
It's a unique experience, and I know that you, my Becky, that like a few months before, you're just like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't want to be defined by this breast cancer, and I think that that's not uncommon. And it's like, crying out loud, we're not going to talk about like boob cancer the whole time. We're going to be like, we got a costume party on day 3 for crying out loud. And but I think that you can admit that there's some therapy happening there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's therapy, because the experience itself is therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend Chris, who goes on the trip, he suggested that we bring a therapist on board, and I'm like, hell no.
I mean,
Hey,
I am a therapist.
well, you are a therapist. Well, you know whose specific duty would be to kumbaya and have a group
Yeah.
therapy session, which is like, that's not what that's not what I would want.
It's not the most organic way to.
It's not.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. So if you know any survivors, especially those who've not done a trip like that, hook them up with me or Pam, and we'll do it for free. Or, $275 for 3 days, everything's included, or free, whatever. I don't care. We'll make it happen. So I'm not sure how long I've rambled on, but if you folks have any questions about art galleries or weed or community engagement on a large scale, or what that industry is looking like and where it's going, then I have some insights, but not, I've closed some of those doors because I don't want to know some of that information, just because in order to be a multi-state cannabis operator, you have to make some decisions, and a lot of those decisions are around crushing the opposition, making sure that small mom and pop organizations won't succeed, no matter what they say, no matter what the social equity program looks like. It's really all about a handful of very wealthy white people at this point. And I am working to create, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion department that we brought in this past year, that has been, up to this point, a bit of a box checking exercise, which I'm not happy with. But it looks like it's turning into something a little bit different and a little bit more meaningful from a standpoint of supply chain. Because that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. If you're an African American Latino woman who wants to get into the cannabis business, it's very difficult. Even though we're the only organization that has a female CEO. She's as ruthless as they come. I'll say that. She does nice things, but only for the end mean. And that's the nature of business. And that's why I'm a shitty businessman and a great community engagement coordinator, because I don't feel the need to expand or sell anything. But that's an interesting process that's happening. And with the end goal, or the golden rung on the ladder, and there's rungs above it, of national legalization. And that is coming, and efforts with DAV, PVA, Paralyzed Veterans of America, they're moving that needle. And that needle is moving, A, because we have powerful lobbyists, and B, because when a cannabis program comes into a new state, the sky does not fall. We thought the sky was going to fall in Arizona, or some people did. What happens, because there's multi-state operators, it's very, very, very challenging to get a license if you aren't involved with a conglomerate that has $1 million in their bankroll. I mean, could I apply and start one? I probably could. I just couldn't succeed anymore. I can guarantee you this now. I could not succeed. So I'm gonna go off into the social equity program. So Arizona and many other states have created a social equity license program that has already come and gone, and that they're offering 23 additional licenses throughout the great state of Arizona that were offered to what we initially thought was going to be low-income Black and brown people that have initiative and experience and can do it, and potentially they could partner with an MSO, multi-state operator, to help fund that situation for them. What it ended up being is that anyone can apply if they're busted for weed at any point in their life for not a non-felony. So if I got pinched for distribution, not distribution, for a minor sale of, say, an ounce of weed, then I could apply for the social equity program. So what was happening, though, is that organizations like ours and the other multi-state operators in Arizona, and this happens in all the other states as well, is that they started soliciting people who, especially black and brown people, that didn't have a big income, that got pinched for those misdemeanor charges, and said, we'll help you get a license. And the great state of Arizona put the caveat in the law saying that they could transfer that license, they could sell it. So if I come to you and say, yeah, I'm really sorry that you got busted, and you know, we really want to support the African American community, we'd like to help you get that license. Our attorneys will get behind you and get that license for you. Now keep in mind, it's not just us, it's the other multi-state operators too that are approaching you because we found you through an unscrupulous attorney, somewhere in the justice system, or we just put a goddamn ad in the paper. And then, well, my cannabis is taking a dark turn, isn't it? And then we get you the license and we give you your $1 million. Done. What have we done? We've created wealth. We haven't created generational wealth. We've given somebody a lot of money. It probably is not $1 million, probably more like $50,000 to $100,000. And so the goal of these social equity programs were to create generational wealth in the black and brown community, disenfranchised communities. But what it was is that the multi-state operators really commandeered the whole program. And how does that happen? How does that happen? Here's how it happens. Steve White wrote most of the law. I mean, our team wrote most of the social equity program. And of course we wrote it so it sounds good, but really, who does it benefit? It benefits us. Us. And Curaleaf, and some of the other big MedMen and that sort of thing. Are we doing good things? I'm telling you, I'm giving away $57,000 a month to small organizations, so we're doing good things. I think I work for the best of the worst companies. And Becky can attest to it. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love that tomorrow morning I'm getting up and going to the Epilepsy Foundation summer camp. For the past 6 years, I've been a counselor there, paid time off with my organization because they believe in it. This year, I'm just going as visitor day and meeting some of the epileptologists who's become friends of mine, the neurologists there, and the new CEO, and all the kids that I've known for 7 years that were in my cabin when they were here, and now they're counselors. How does that happen? How does that happen? Getting older, aren't we? I mean, the people that I know are getting older alongside me, but when I see George Averbeck telling me he's 70 goddamn years old, and I'm like, when I met you, you were my age, and you're still ornery. So it's interesting to see faces in Flagstaff. Pam's one of those faces that the central hub of Flagstaff, many things revolve around Flag Brew on Sunday. Sometimes they revolve around Pay and Take. And there's other little hubs that you can find: Shanta Begay, George Breed, Andrew Moore, Pam, this cast of characters. That guy, the rat sack, man, that thing is awesome. You handed me a rat sack at Flag Brew a few weeks ago, and I'm like, for me? I think like an eon ago, I said, if you guys have any questions, and then I just commandeered the whole conversation per usual. So if you have anything for me, let me know. Oh, I'll take.
Gratitude, I just want to say thank you. I slipped and fell winter before last and broke my ankle on ice and had 2 surgeries and ended up with some just real serious nerve damage. And the only thing I was given from the medical community had a whole list of things that I would take, but it was really hard to process daily life. And because of the timing and just being lucky that I guess I did this at this point in the world, I've been able to use cannabis, primarily CBD, with a little THC. I'm hopeful that it may heal one day, but I'm able to manage it without going on heavy
Yeah, so this is the face, right here, that's the face of what
So I'm really enthusiastic, and I just like to share that with people that, you know, as you should, that it wasn't because I'm older, but I am older, but things happen, and this is available now, but a lot of people don't know about that yet.
And it's available in the sense where it's a recreational program right now, so you don't need a damn thing other than the ability to get there. And in some states, they deliver. Ours is one of them. I don't think that, I'm not sure if the Flagstaff ones deliver or not. Does anybody know that? Phoenix, you can get delivery, and I mean, there's a protocol you have to go through with that. But if you go to one of the dispensaries, and this is where we shine at Harvest and True Leaf, is that our place is clean, our staff is extremely well educated and chatty, and they know about their products, and most importantly, they know about the products, but they know that they are not your prescribing physician, and they know not to, like, oh, you're cancer, well, this is what you should have, or you have a seizure disorder, well, you should have this. They never do that, and if they do, you're in the wrong spot. We encourage you to talk to your doctor and share that information and make this part of your medical program. And now it's been up and running long enough where people are actually doing that, and doctors aren't going, not pain management doctors. Pain management doctors are still giving people the boot out of their program. But cancer, neurology, many pain docs are now are embracing this as an adjunct. Mostly because it's not tremendously addictive, about the same amount as a cup of coffee. And the new laws in Arizona with the recreational program enforce everything is third-party tested. And that and $2 will get you a cup of coffee. But third-party tested, so what are they testing for? How do they know what to test for? So essentially you know that there's no mold, there's no pesticides, and everything, and it's a clean product in the state of Arizona. So at least you know that. Again, I went off on a little bit of a tangent. I tended up. Oh?
You had mentioned Parkinson's diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Have you worked with any organizations as donating or working with them?
So yeah, so in August we'll be working with the Arizona Parkinson's Foundation. We're part with the MS Society and the Parkinson's Foundation, and oftentimes I get those foundations and societies mixed up a little bit. And they have been wonderful to work with, and so we'll be the Parkinson's Foundation of Arizona does their big fundraising in Metro Phoenix is a bicycle ride, 2-day bicycle ride, and so we'll be partnering with them at that. I have spoken with Friends of Parkinson's and along with our medical director in Las Vegas, and we've been working with different organizations that work with Parkinson's. The foundation really is quite new at being able to acknowledge the cannabis industry. What does that mean? Is like we could be part of one of their walks 2 years ago, but we couldn't get any acknowledgement. And I have a bit of a caveat right now where I encourage you to acknowledge us if you're an organization, because it takes cannabis away from being a dirty little secret in the Parkinson's community or neurological movement disorder communities. From the Parkinson's standpoint, as well as other neurological movement disorders, ALS, what have you, so many people saw that video on YouTube of the person with tremors, and then he did a giant bong rip. I'm sorry, he consumed cannabis, and his tremor stopped and he could speak normally. And when I spoke with the Parkinson's support group in Verde Valley, we had about 100 people in there. And I said, who saw that video? Every hand went up. I'm like, that may not happen for you.
Yes.
And, but it may. And is it worth trying? Yes, it's worth trying. I mean, I hate to approach a medical product with a, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
You got to lose. I mean, what do you have to
Well,
lose?
especially for that group of people.
And also, should I not be saying something?
No, she was just.
Oh, I'm sorry. You shushed me. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, you know, especially that group of people, really, it almost comes to the point of where you have to lose.
Yeah.
They have no, they can't do deep brain stimulation for whatever reason, so. But the reason I asked, I work in home health, and there's a group, Parkinson's group at the Peaks that meets the second Tuesday of every month. And they're always looking for speakers, and it's at the Peaks, so, you know, some of those people do have money and they, you know, can find out
Well,
things, but.
so if that's something that
many
you
don't.
want, I mean,
Even there, they don't have money there.
I'm happy to clean up my talk a little bit and be a bit more organized. Or our national medical director lives here in town,
Oh, that would be.
and he would be more than happy to talk to a Parkinson's group,
Yeah.
whether it's in person, which I prefer that now that COVID's done, or virtually.
Well, it's a really nice thing they do the second Tuesday of every month, and they just have different speakers come in and educate them on ideas or what can possibly help them.
You know, the goofiest thing about speaking with groups for the past 10 years, up until now, I get the same damn joke every time. Did you bring any samples? And now, I can bring samples, but I never do. Because to me, I'm not there yet. I personally am not there yet, but can we bring samples? We could do that. And I also think that some of the local organizations here might be beneficial to talk to, because the cannabis organizations, like I said, they really want to serve this population. They just don't know how to do it, or they're too lazy to do it, and that's all I do. Yes, sir.
Just a couple things. You mentioned, you know, the healing process and experimenting. Two questions. A, were you a user before? And if not, B, and this is part of the industry that has to convince that non-user to try weed. What convinced you to even try it? Doctor, friends, what, I mean.
I felt dismayed when I read about, and I checked, you know, I looked into the prescription that I was given by my surgeon, and just in despair. And my husband said, how CBD? And they were like, oh, yeah. And then I read, you know, I work here in the library, so I got all the books I could hear.
Yeah.
Read up on it, and.
So just a little bit of influence and then just self-educating yourself and
Yeah.
kind of good. That's
But
good.
I
I'm
don't
just
even know
curious,
what I would have
because
thought of it.
how do you get that person to, that's, I never did a drug in my life.
Well-
And it was a little spooky, I have to say,
Yeah.
you know, because I mean, it's been a big deal, it's been, like, you could.
And your
you could
experience,
get arrested for most of my life.
for sure.
So, you know, and
And tell me, what was your experience like when you went into a dispensary? Was it, because there's 3 dispensaries in town, and I've been to 2 of them, and I've been to various other dispensaries, secret shopping and such, around the state and the country, and they all have very different vibes. Some of them have a very stoner sort of feel, and some of them have a extremely clinical sort of, so extreme that it feels like complete bullshit to me. And then there's organizations like us that really kind of got it down, where it's like, let's just provide good education, be clean, and if somebody wants to talk, we have someone to talk to them. If somebody wants to just get her done, go, that's fine. So your experience was?
my first experience, and again, I was all filled with fluttering and anxiety about, you know, I'm gonna go to a dispensary. I think it was that Noble or, yeah. And there was a police looking guy there, you
Yep.
know, checking everybody's ID coming in, you know, police, but he was pretty official looking. And everything was in glass cases, and when we went to, it was fine, you know, when you decide what you're gonna try.
I guess what I'm asking is, were they helpful? And did
Yeah.
they make you feel like you, did they make you not, did you walk out feeling icky?
No.
Boom, success.
I'd say one thing that's somewhat disappointing
Yeah.
with it is that the actual CBD flower isn't really available.
And that's a,
You know, it's all THC flower.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
you know.
CBD, you can order it between states.
Yes, right.
And here's why. When we first started, we had some great strains. AC/DC was one of them, Harley Quinn, and anything with the word Harley in it typically is a high CBD product. A multi-state operator can't make money with that.
I know, It's
We can't, and it's very frustrating. But there are products that are CBD isolates that are in tincture form that are good products.
We just actually grow our own.
Perfect. Look how far she's come.
Because we're kind of organic here, we like to know what's in it.
Well, it is a plant, and it's a hardy plant, and it grows big, and it smells nice.
It does, beautiful, beautiful thing.
And so I have several friends that were organic gardeners that never ever thought that that was the direction they were going to go in, but someone gave them some seeds and let's give it a shot, and now it's like, this is my favorite plant to grow. I don't use it, I just give it away. But for growers, it's a very fun thing. And our cultivation facility, one of our cultivation facilities, when you go down I-17 as you're passing 260, if you're the passenger, close your eyes and take a big inhale. That's us. There are 5 cultivation facilities in Camp Verde. We're the largest, and we're right off of 260. And my role with them has been unique because the cultivators are the black sheep of the cannabis industry because they don't have the glory of they don't see people, they don't see where where the end product goes. They're just, so I made it my point to go and meet them all and hang out with their lead cultivator, who Robert Taylor is in lots of bands in the Verde Valley, and he's a great musician and loves plants. But I approached them earlier on in the year and said, let's talk about water. And let's ingratiate ourselves into the community, not because we sell weed, but because we're big ag and we're making a conscious effort to save water. Okay, now that I've made my speech, Robert, how do we save water? And he's like, no one has ever asked me that. In the years I've worked here, no one has ever asked me that or asked me to focus on it. We think about it every day. And so I made some phone calls and we made it a priority. And in one tweak of emitters, not only do we save money, we save time, but within just one day of tweaking, we're saving 500,000 gallons of water as per last year. And that's not, it's not doing runoff, that's not doing anything, it's just tweaking the emitter and making it more efficient. And with the emitter is a drip system, basically. So, Pam, you had something?
Was that?
You
We are running low on time.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to change the subject a little bit just to address something you billed yourself as in the flyer that we made. You called yourself a tiny trail tinkerer?
Trailer. I actually noticed. It says trail, and it's supposed to say trailer.
I was going to ask him about the tiny trail.
Yes. Didn't you see the breadcrumbs to come in here? Yeah.
It's his new art form.
And you know,
Only a few know.
so Andrew just said it's a new art form, joking. It is a new art form for me. When the pandemic hit, we didn't know what we were gonna do, and I say we collectively. Becky and I wanted to go visit her brother in Delaware for Thanksgiving, and I'm like, there's no flipping way I'm gonna get on an airplane, because I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's something that's being blown out of proportion. I don't know if we're all gonna die. I don't know if there's gonna be a zombie apocalypse. I don't know anything. Let's drive out there with our 2 smelly old dogs. Well, then all of a sudden I found a tiny trailer, a teardrop trailer in Camp Verde that was priced too good to be true, and I went down there and found out why. And it was super cute on the outside, and the guy was clean and tidy, and he'd been living in it for about 6 years in the trailer park as you pass by on I-17. And he's like, I don't understand why nobody's buying it. It's priced right. So I open the door, and it's like, maybe it's because you placed a full-size household toilet right in the middle of a 9-foot trailer. So when you're taking a dump, you can have a cup of coffee and have 1 foot on the bed. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why.
But it's perfect for me.
Will you take $4,000 for it? Yes.
So, tiny trailer.
So within 3 hours, there was a broken toilet in Becky's front yard, and I'm learning 12-volt electrical systems, solar systems, and water systems of tiny trailers, which are wonderful because they're nothing but attaboy projects. I did the entire electrical system in 4 hours, and next time I can do it in 1. I learned how to do solar, and we cruised to Delaware thinking we were going to be gone for about 2.5, 3 weeks. 3 months later, we get back. And I realized that tiny trailer is too tiny, so let's buy an extra large tiny trailer. So we started getting into fiberglass trailers. I'm on my 5th one now. Buy them, fix them up exactly how I want, and then, which is not how everyone else wants them, but I don't care. Because it's no toilet at all. So what you get is a mixture of burliness and cuteness and efficiency that is every bit as satisfying as painting a mural in the library.
Right on.
And every bit as frustrating too. So we took the 1976 Trillium 13-footer out for 3 days this week, and test drove to the Tilted Earth Festival in Lomeli Campground. Wonderful. It's turquoise. It's so sexy. It has a Timbren independent suspension off-road axles on it. It's lifted 10 to 12 inches. It's a beast. It's 100 watts of power, solar power. The water tank I put in, way too big. Awesome. So we had a little bit of a leak and all sorts of things. And I was super disappointed yesterday when one came on the market for $1,800 and it sold too quickly. So I like to have one in the wings, because when I'm frustrated with my corporate job, I can go out in my fortress of solitude, my 13-foot fortress of solitude that's either lemon yellow or paprika red or turquoise. Turquoise is gone now. Actually, my second turquoise one is, and then I end up selling them to people who are just like absolutely apeshit over them. And I make a little bit of a profit, enough to buy me another junky trailer. And so that's my tiny trailer. Not tiny trails, but I do take tiny trails. I do take tiny trails. So
Are you in the Verde Valley now, or where do you?
here, Sunnyside. And I mean, I can tell you about our place in Phoenix because it's worth a little bit of a story. Y'all can leave. Y'all can leave.
She is running low.
Well, I'm just gonna stop the recording, but please, no, visit, stay here and visit. Yes, absolutely, please.
So we live.
Thank you, David.
And you're welcome.